Welcome everybody to, a first Puppet camp since a couple of years that we're doing this. This one under, specific conditions is different to what the other ones, not in person but virtual. I'm going to talk about the Puppet control repository and the Git workflows. So I'm a Puppet trainer spec since 2011, doing the official Puppet trainings in Germany. And through all of these trainings, I'll always learn that, especially in the beginner trainings, that people struggle with understanding and learning Git and how to adopt a Git workflow onto their Puppet control repository. So I decided to do a talk on that topic, giving you some ideas on what kind of workflows do we have available. I will shortly talk about the Puppet control repository itself. I will then, what I do in each training, give you an example of a super simple Git workflow, and then dealing with like infrastructure separation, like development environment and network and production network, and up to a super complex thing, which might look complex in the beginning, but what is it when you have to maintain code for specific stages? So the first thing, the Puppet control repository. Everybody should be aware that this is your code. So it's not something that you can download. It's a control repository where you add your own roles and profiles pattern. You're separating upstream modules, which I usually tend to call library modules. You separate them from your own code or by having a Puppet file, and I know a couple of people that don't do this via a Puppet file, but do this via Git submodules. The important thing is that a Puppet control repository on a Git server will have branches, Git branches, and these branches will be deployed on your Puppet master by using R10K, or if you have the enterprise version, the code manager, it will be deployed to Puppet environments. You can either start with an empty repository from scratch, or you can use our Puppet Systems Infrastructure Construction Kit, which is a ready-to-use control repository where you mainly just add data in the beginning. The workflow is independently whether you start with an empty repository or whether you use something that is already there. The problem that now people have is when they learn, okay, branches will be Puppet environment, and then they learn within Puppet they have a specific default environment, which is the production environment. And now people consider, okay, we have something like a development environment, we have a testing environment, we have a production environment, so let's do 3 different branches and let's work on these branches and stage features, new things from development into testing into production. Well, this might sometimes not be the best idea. Consider the following. You are running infrastructure for developers. So you have development environment, which you offer to your developers to work on. What will happen if you, by accident, break this development environment? It will not be available for developers, so developers have to wait until you have reinstantiated this development environment. How long might this take to reinstantiate your environment? We had one customer dealing with that approach, offering for 100 developers a development environment, and one day was the day that never happens because there never happens an error. And one day it was the day that never happens, an error happens, and all development systems went down due to an issue with the virtualization platform, which was also managed by Puppet, because they did something wrong in the development branch. So instead, I prefer to say Puppet developers are, within their infrastructure, should offer stable platforms to everybody, whether it is a development team, whether it is a Q&A team, or even to your customers, which are running on your production environment. So all of these systems must run properly, which leads us to a difference between application stages and Puppet environments. And this is what I usually explain to people in the training, that I say, your production environment is what your infrastructure is using. It's production ready, even if it is the development stage. And the differences between your application stages like development and testing, having different database servers, having different entry points, different SSL certificates, is something which you just place into hierarchy. because this setup with one long-living branch only will allow you to do a simple Git workflow. So you don't have many branches, you just have one long-living branch. Please protect this branch. Use any kind of Git appliance and just say the long-living branch, which usually is the production branch, is a protected branch, so nobody can directly push inside. As I already mentioned, different between your stages are in Hira. And when you add features, you first do this via feature branches and merge requests. And maybe you even use feature flags, which you can activate first in development, then in testing, and afterwards in production. Feature branches are again now Puppet environments that will be also deployed by RTMK or Code Manager to your Puppet master. Just be sure that there are some special characters that prevent that this branch will be available deployed to your Puppet master, like mathematical characters, the slash, the percentage sign. These are branch names that will not get deployed. Where are these branches then useful for? Let's do the whole thing in a little graphic and explain how things are working. So you're having left top your default branch, which might be production. Then you have two developers who work at the same time, not together, but at the same time at two different features. Developer A is working on feature A, developer B is working on feature B. So developer A says, I'm checking out a feature branch, and when I'm ready, I'm giving it to review by creating a merge request, and someone else is reviewing my change, so it gets back into production. Any other developer must now, rebase so that they are on the actual state on their default branch, so they are able to also generate a review and merge request. Branch names which are not deployed to the Puppet masters can be done as playground for your trainees. So new people working on Puppet, having no experience or lack of experience or need an understanding on how things should be done, just create them a branch that don't get deployed. So this is their playground. You can review together with them, so you can coach them. The nice thing, it's easy to learn, it's easy to handle. You just need a couple of commands. You need the Git checkout command, you need the Git branch command, you need the Git pull and Git push command, and the Git rebase command, and that's it. On the downside, it's not really staging of code, because all your stages will use your production environment, and the differences are just in Hira. So when you somehow by a review put bad code into your Puppet control repository, hopefully it's just the compiler complaining, you will see this error on all of your nodes. But we have a separation between where we develop code. This is our development network environment, and we have a separate network environment, which is in the data centers where we have our production systems inside. So this leads us to a Git workflow with a staging branch. By saying, for example, we have different networks, we have different data centers spread throughout the world. Maybe we can't synchronize them properly. In this case, you might consider that you have a separation, like separate Git masters, one in your development zone and one in your production zone, which also means you might have a Puppet master in your development zone and one Puppet master in your production zone. What you won't do is develop code twice, once in the production system and after on the production Git server, and afterwards on the production in the development Git server and then in the production Git server. We say all code must be developed in the development zone, and you are not allowed to push code on your production Git server. There will be merge requests created, but hopefully this is all done by a CI/CD system, so it automates your synchronization and your merge request creation. Also adding a little picture to it. We have our development branch, which is our default branch in this case. We can check out a feature branch. Now we can create a merge request and have it reviewed. Once that is merged, a next merge request will automatically create by a CI/CD to some kind of staging branch. And this staging branch, whenever something changes on the staging branch, we are triggering a CI/CD system, whether that's Jenkins or GitLab CI runner, it's up to you, whatever you use, or CD4PE maybe. And this system just pulls the code, from the development Git server and pushes it into the other network zone into the production Git server. So that CI/CD system must be a system that had access to both networks. You might talk to security about that and be sure that the system is properly secure and that security is aware that you have something staging your code from your development environment into your production environment. So the staging branch is the branch that you have on both sides. And on the production side, you will, via CI/CD, then create a new merge request towards your production branch. And maybe you don't automate the merging, but just the creation of the merge request. The positive thing, any kind like network separation, security concerns is taken care about. So you are sure that you work in your development environment and the network, an automated process takes care that a network, that the code is pushed into the second network. On the downside, you need to understand how CI/CD is working. So you need automatic merging creation and automatic merge requests approval and something like that. You need the staging and don't do anything manual, maybe except for the production environment. And then there are systems and infrastructures which say, no, we must have a code base for development systems, a code base for integration or QA systems, and a code base for production systems. So we need 3 long-living branches. And what is now the problem with 3 long-living branches and why do you need them? And there's a concept that helps you when you have to work with long-living branches, and the concept is called Git Flow. Git Flow is already a couple of years old. This comes from application development, where you say, I have an application in a specific version. I need to be able to do hot fixes into already released applications. I must be able to backport these hot fixes up into development. And of course, you want to have the other way around. You want to have from development new features into new versions of your applications. So maybe you have things like an ITIL process where you follow changes. Maybe you have the need for a strict code separation between development and production, which is strictly required. You must be able to provide hot fixes and you must be able to add new features to your code. When you want to do this, you must follow some concepts. The first thing is no merges between branches. Merges between branches means that the branches have an identical history, and this is now no longer the case. And I will show you next a picture which will show you why merging branches is not a good idea when using multiple branches and working with many people. See, each of these branches is an individual development, an individual history. So there's no aligned history. And if you want to do changes from development into testing, you cannot merge them, but you have to cherry pick your changes into the next stage. So why no merges between branches? Well, super simple. We have the development branch. We develop a feature A and we merge it into development, and we have a feature B and we merge it into development. And now you only want to stage the feature B and not feature A and B into your next branch and your next stage. So hard to do. You have to know what you're doing. You can't do just purely merges. Instead, see each of your stages, development, testing, and production, as a closed code base. And in each of these code bases, you're working with feature branches, and feature merge requests. To allow afterwards proper cherry picking, you must be sure that each feature branch, that each merge request consists of a single commit only. So either add additional commits, not just with git commit, but use git commit -- amend, or when you have finished your work, use git squash prior rebasing, use git squash to put multiple commits together into a single commit. Again, a little picture that describes this. This is now 4 different commits that are within a feature branch. Don't just merge these 4 commits, squash them prior you continue with your work. So we already see what is the biggest problem when adopting Git Flow. The biggest problem on adopting Git Flow is understanding Git. You need to know about squashing and rebasing, and of course you will have to deal with merge conflicts that will occur sooner or later. Hopefully they are more rare, depending on how many changes do you do and how fast do you deploy your changes from development into production, or hot fixes from production into development. A picture describing this way is this one. So it's again, we have development, testing, and production. We do feature branch-based development, whether that's a hotfix in production, whether it's a corrective change in testing, or a new feature in development. And what you do is you cherry pick the single commit. The problem with cherry pick is you can only take a single commit for a cherry pick, and you say, I'm cherry picking that change from feature A in development into a feature A branch into testing. I'm cherry picking my hotfix from a hotfix production feature branch into a hotfix testing feature branch, so we can backport it. The nice thing, you are able to do branch-specific development. You need to understand Git super properly. You need to know what you're doing, and everybody within the team. It is not enough that one person only understands the concepts of Git Flow and the concepts of squashing and rebasing. Everybody in the team must learn that. It sometimes might be a little bit more work to bring changes into the desired target branch, whether that's a hotfix or a new feature, because you might have merge conflicts that you have to solve. So which workflow should you use? Which workflow is the best one for your environment? Well, the first thing is do everything as simple as possible. Infrastructure will become complex by itself. You might get Puppet code complex by itself. So you don't have to do something complex. It will be complex anyway, sooner or later. So start with the most simple approach. And when you learn things, you can even go for maybe at the beginning they were complex and now they are more comfortable solutions. So the conclusion is start simple and expand when learning. Follow the KISS principle. Keep it silly simple. Keep everything as simple that everybody understands it. And when everybody learns, you can do progress into your changes. The next thing is automate everything, which is not only your infrastructure managed by Puppet, but also your code deployment. Consider doing merge requests automatically. Maybe even say this is by an automatic pattern identifying that this merge request is non-destructive and you can automatically merge it. We will work with Git. We barely have a customer who is not using Git by nowadays. And every customer has the same thing. They have to learn Git in the first place. Take care on that. Take your time for learning Git. And don't do anything complex because it's looking nice when you don't need it. So maybe you can have a look at it, but never adopt a complex workflow. Try to look and understand a complex workflow, but don't adopt it if you don't need it. And last but least, I just have one more thing to say. Everybody is talking about social distancing. Please stop doing social distancing. That is something that mankind does since ages. What we need is physical distance. Take care on people who need help. Take care on small local businesses that they survive. These are people that are paying our taxes. And I'm open to any kind of questions.
Thank you very much, Martin. That was fantastic. And I really, really enjoyed your second conclusion. Thank you. So you do have a few questions here. So I'm just going to jump right into the first one from John. And John has said, what is the benefits of using rebase when working with Git, pull versus pull and rebase?
Yeah. Okay. Okay. So you need, of course. So what I usually do is you have to do a fetch. So you have a local working copy, and you're working on a feature branch. Working on that feature branch while working on that feature branch, in the meantime, your production branch might get additional changes. And what we see at customers is that they want to have a proper timeline on when is a code added to the production branch. So when you're having a feature branch, try to regular update your local working copy of your production branch. And then when you want to move on to a merge request towards the production branch, it's the best thing to rebase. That means You're fetching the code from the production branch, and then your changes will get applied in order. So everything is in a timely manner. Especially when you have multiple commits, you want to first rebase or even first squash your commits into a single commit, then do a rebase. So saying I'm recreating the base where I started working on, and then you can add your code, and then you can push it back into your feature branch. The question was the benefit of using rebase when working with Git pull versus pull and rebase. So I hope that's clear. So just doing pull just adds the changes from production with the changes of your code inside. When you rebase, you have the origin production, and then your changes will get added later in a timeline.
Great, Martin. Thank you very much. I'm just going to go on to another question from Ben Ford. Are you using this workflow with your hero data too? How do you keep the code data synchronized?
Okay, we have different approaches. So one customer says Puppet control repository has the hira data inside, so everything is in one single place. So when they do changes to the code, they can add hira data. When they change parameters, they can change the hira data, all within the same repository. It will be more difficult when we have customers that, for example, due to access rights, the hira data is a separate repository. And in this case, we place the hira data into Puppet file, and we reference them with the staging branch, which means when we have a production branch in the Puppet control repository and we have a production branch in the hira data repository, this production branch will get deployed to the production Puppet environment. When we have a development environment on our Puppet control repository branch, and we have a development environment on the hira data branch, hira data repository, then these get deployed automatically. So yes, the workflow basically is the same. Also, when it comes to multiple branch names, we have one customers where we say hira data are different. They use this staging concept. The hira data is different in development and in production. So it's fetched from a different Git server and it has complete different data. So within development, you're only changing development hira data, and production, you're only changing production hira data. Basically, yes, the concept, the workflow is the same. It's just Git and working with branches.
Great, Martin.
There's one more. Do we have time for one more?
Yes, we do indeed. Yes.
From Dominic, I see now. Yes. What is the best way to develop in the Control-Repo environment when deploying via R10K? When using Visual Studio Code with a remote plugin, you are connecting to Puppet Master, making changes in your feature branch environment, checking if everything's worked well by applying the stuff with an agent, and then, okay, this is something that we usually do not via Visual Studio Code, but via a CI system. You're working with your feature branch. You never use any of your long-living branches to do changes in there. So even when you have 3 branches like development, testing, and production, you will always add code via a feature branch. Pushes in this feature branch will result in a test suite that's taken place, up to even deploying it on canary nodes, so that you have an automatic pattern that triggers your Puppet Enterprise, your Bolt service, so that you have systems which can choose their environment freely. These are your canary nodes, and these nodes will the first nodes that see your new Puppet code. Do this automatically via CI pipeline, check the result afterwards. Agent should not report an error. It should report a change, but not an error. On the second run, it should no longer show an error, show a change. It only should show that everything is already configured as is. So develop in the control repository environment means doing feature branches. Feature branches will be deployed via R10K. This deployment is also done via a CI pipeline. So the CI pipeline usually does syntax checks, then it does unit tests on the Puppet code, then it creates a merge request, then it will deploy the code to the Puppet master, and it will trigger a run on the canary nodes. And if that's all successful, we are only waiting for an approval for the merge request to get our feature into the next branch. I hope that this answers the question